Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ripple Effect. My name is John Geary, and I'm president of the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And on this series of interviews, we look to sit down with former JVs and explore the powerful meaning behind service. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Luis Melgar. Luis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to always kind of share in conversation with a beloved organization. So excited to be here.
Thank you. And so we're going to explore that a little bit for the benefit of people listening who may not know JVC. There are more than 12,000 FJVs around the world who are alumni of the program, and each of us has our own story. And so I'd like to start there, Luis. What's your story? How did you come to JVC with the various choices I'm sure you were looking at when you were leaving university at the time?
Yeah, so I think it's important to name Scranton University, the University of Scranton, as a key place for me. I was Jesuit educated in high school at Scranton Prep, and then just kind of hopped on over to the University of Scranton. And there I actually entered as an exercise science major. I wanted to do physical therapy, pursue doctorate program there, or like the DPT. And yeah, I mean, I entered in, had a guaranteed spot, one of 40, and the 7 years of my life were kind of already set. Of course, so I thought. And then I worked as a work-study student in the Jesuit Center, so I was kind of surrounded by the Jesuits, immersed in that sort of sphere, that language. And I think one summer, actually, I was working as a summer conference assistant, and the international JVs would actually be hosted by the University of Scranton. And it was there kind of checking these folks who wore Birkenstocks and Chacos, right? At least my first year, I was just like, okay, it's just another group coming in, at least my first year. But then in just some casual conversations at meals, or just in passing in the shared res life halls, I got to really start to think, like, what is this about? And so really just my first encounter with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps was at Scranton with the international cohorts.
Yeah.
You know, so at least that's just how it was first introduced. And then they encouraged me to kind of think through different opportunities at the university, and I went on an immersion trip that of course changed the rest of my life, and I think challenged a lot of my notions of what I should do after grad school, or at least they definitely helped water the plants, the seeds that were planted kind of throughout my time in Jesuit education. So
Yeah.
you know.
There's a favorite motto of JVC that makes us all smile when we say it: ruined for life.
Mm-hmm.
And each of us has our own understanding of that, but there's a common, I'll call it, emotional connection to that feeling. What does it mean to you when you think of ruined for life?
Yeah. So I think at least when I was entering, for some reason, it seemed that term ruined for life seemed like we kind of were trying to move away from it. But I think at its core, like my experience of that, or at least the remnants of that, were thinking we were moved by an experience that we can't see the world, see ourselves in the same way. And I think there's a sense of kind of feeling overwhelmed by the many challenges that our generation at that time, and still my generation, all of us kind of were tasked with sort of responding to, right? Those signs of the times. And I found that, yeah, I was definitely moved by my experience, volunteering with the service program, the international immersions program at my school. But I was thinking, yeah, a week, 7 to 10 days was one thing, but I wanted to do something a little bit more long term, to think through how, if 7 to 10 days can do this, what can a year, a 2-year experience do? And so the next year, when the FJVs, or the JVs in preparation for their departure, were coming to Scranton, I came in with questions. And so I was kind of looked at in an interesting way as a sort of informal orientee. And I think that they helped kind of not ruin me further, but I guess help me think through how can we do that with others, or what might be some paths to do that, just at least for 1 to 2 years. And so I was sold. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think today, you're teaching in a high school, and you know, seeing a lot of how people are coming up. It's a as you say, a same world but in a different world in many cases. What would you say about a JVC experience someone should think about, and as let's say today they're leaving college and considering a lot of different career choices? Why should they consider the JVC?
Yeah, so my return to high school was intentional. I finished my Master's of Divinity in 2023, and one of the things I wanted to do after studying theology for 3 years was to figure out how to share this and land I call it the MDiv plane, this pie in the sky kind of theology that is rooted in experience, and share it with others as it was shared with me. And so thinking about how that was experience processed my first year of teaching, it was kind of difficult to do that initially because I was just kind of learning how to teach really, or how to, like a lot of the mechanics of teaching. But I think that with time, and especially this year, I've come to really appreciate that there's almost even more pressure put on young people today to sort of find stability, security, which is really important and valid. But it's rushing through sort of that process, like that really important time where young people can retreat, take a moment to pause and slow down, to really consider what it is that they want. What does success mean for me? What is my faith calling me to? Or sort of, there's a spiritual hunger that I'm sensing with young people today that's not being invested, or they're not finding nourishment in church, at least as traditionally understood. And so there's a hunger, and I found that if I were to describe this experience, or if I were to encourage young people to consider this experience, I would say that in a lot of ways it's part of this longer pilgrimage of life that invites you to really slow down. I find that grace and God is often stifled or suppressed or obscured, avoided even, because of how hurried, how rushed, and how efficient we've become, and how solutions can be presented or answers can be found. But what they're coming to, or at least I sense that young people are sensing, is that simple answers are not responding to their hunger or their desires. And JVC kind of complicates that. So that for me, instead of ruined for life, it like my vocation has been complicated and clarified, but also broadened. And it's like, oh, one way to take it would be like, there's so much I can do. Like there's so much need, and it can overwhelm. But to be around other people who are also inclined, or at least open to being in conversation or dialogue with those questions, I'd say that's such a gift that you won't find easily in the quote-unquote real world after college. So that's what I would say to a young person today, is that it's a great way to kind of pause and slow down and to think about what it is that you're really feeling called to.
That's a great thought, because I don't think there are many opportunities. I mean, my sense is, even when I was at the same age and decision, one of the important parts was there's this pressure to rush on to find out what's around the corner and what a career might have, or what other things are have. But you end up missing a period in time one of the rare periods in time in your life when you could have time for be able to think through and contemplate and pray on where life may be taking you. And tell me then, is there somebody or some people who were particularly inspirational for you in finding your calling and in finding your desire to serve others?
I would say like they're informally, they don't know this. Not all the people do, but I call them, they're key members of my spiritual board, right? They kind of help prod, urge, encourage me to apply to different things or to consider different options. Even the Jesuit Center, where I worked at the University of Scranton, it was kind of an offhand, like, there's a little desk job here. I think you'd be great for it. It was an offhand thing that a Jesuit at Scranton Prep, Father Keller, like Herb Keller, mentioned to me. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I could be making some more money doing something else, but I'll give it a shot. So I visited, and they're like, we were just chatting, and I was just so surprised by how like engaged they were in my own background. So I'm first generation Salvadoran American, and just sharing that I'm from El Salvador, right? And I didn't know like their involvement with the Jesuits and the rich history that's there. I think helped me realize that, oh, there's something here. And then I took Latin American Liberation Theology class, which is one of my electives my junior year. And that helped me see the intersection between faith and justice, right, with Oscar Romero, who himself wasn't a Jesuit, although he's kind of like been adopted into a lot of that, which is amazing, right? Or other figures like Dean Brackley and some of the readings that come from that. I found that like this network kind of is very expansive and rich, and my experience of that has only generated like both people I've met physically, but also people I've met through text and through my coursework have helped me sort of, they've served as partners in helping deepen my relationship not only to God, but also to the longer tradition of the church that does like a faith that has embodied and lived out a faith that does justice. So we have some writers, we have some like offhand people making just casual comments or some invitations, but then we have some folks who were much more intentional in like that accompaniment. And I would say that those those JVs preparing for orientation were crucial, and also a lot of the campus ministry staff who kind of helped nurture those retreat skills and helped me realize, oh, I kind of like this whole like talking about real things on retreats. Like, why can't we do this in other spaces? And so it certainly has, all those figures have helped see me, the gifts that I have to offer, but also have had me now as an educator, as a Jesuit, having been a Jesuit educated and now, as a Jesuit educator, I invite others into that space. It's like, this is where I love scripture, right? The whole call of Samuel, right? Where I feel I am now sort of passing on the baton of what I've learned and calling people, and they're responding, here I am. And I'm here to say, I'm with you too, And so I really have enjoyed that sort of long history in the tradition of people who've tapped on me and kind of pushed at times when I didn't see those gifts in myself.
Yeah. And tell me, I believe you're now helping us lead retreats for FJVs. Is that correct? And what's that been like?
Yeah, so it's with there's kind of formal retreats that happen throughout the United States, and for the past couple of years, I've been a part of the New England former Jesuit volunteer retreat planning team. And so the way it works, at least with the New England group, it's just sort of people for various reasons, we all kind of end up in the New England region for higher ed, master's programs, or work. It's kind of like a part two of, if you do JVC, you usually move to Boston or the greater Boston area. And there's been a lot of connections and ties to just wanting to get together outside of retreats. But at some point, I don't know how, but we just decided let's do a retreat. And so it's been passed down, kind of positions are given, or leadership is kind of formed on a 2-year basis. So there's a bit of sustainability involved. And so this past October, we had a retreat called Rooted, that we titled or themed Rooted in Growth. And it was just kind of having us think through what are the signs of the times and what do we need to nourish ourselves in the midst of a lot of scarcity, a lot of fear, a lot of unknowns and uncertainties. And I found that our reflections or our conversations and just everyone there was also wanting to be in community with that. And so to have just one weekend over Indigenous Peoples Weekend, to just talk through some of those kind of tensions, not to resolve, but just to listen and be with one another was just a gift. And honestly, I think it's something that we need to find ways of doing that, not just on sort of like a one-off weekend, but really throughout the year. How do we accompany? And that's kind of what we're trying to figure out, at least on the FGV retreat leadership kind of side of things.
Yeah. Today we're having this conversation on Valentine's Day, which is kind of a holiday, and I see you're dressed in red to celebrate. When you were living abroad with the Jesuit International Volunteer, did you have a holiday that you thought was particularly interesting or enjoyable that you experienced?
Yeah, and I found that like the Christmas season in Andahuaylillas, Peru, so it's like kind of 40-ish minutes from Cusco, where I served, was a wonderful time as a parish volunteer, really God's intern, right, doing whatever the site asked of me. One of those was to kind of join the Jesuit support person, who himself was a Jesuit, who was there for a certain number of years. And we would go out to like rural communities or communities out and kind of do, not catechesis necessarily, but kind of doing these sort of holiday Christmas kind of gatherings where we have panettone, which is like this, not fruitcake, I'm not sure how to describe it, but folks who know.
Yeah.
This sort of holiday bread that's like just classical, like Christmas season bread. We would bring a huge tub or thing of chocolate milk, and the idea is like a lot of families would come over. We would sing sort of, we'd come together to kind of, there'd be a liturgy kind of in like the community center or whatever space that they had, and there'd be of course like kids running around, there'd be dogs walking through because it's Latin America, right? And there'd be just families, just all people coming, perhaps just for the hot chocolate, totally fine, or the panettone that would be given out afterwards, the refrigerio, the little snack. But it would also be just kind of, there'd be mass kind of that would also center that space. And for me, I found that the Christmas season and visiting those communities in these sort of sharing, this communion, right? Not second communion, but another expression of communion, was just a beautiful experience to witness firsthand, and had me really excited because as a JV late departure, we arrived at the beginning of December. And it was kind of like our first time abroad, getting to know a lot of things, and it was like full like submersion in the experience. And we're away from family during Christmas, the holidays, that sort of thing. And I think that just to see that expression of like, or that sense of community at the beginning really kind of helped me ease into the experience and feel welcome in a way that I'll be all right here. You know, this is the kind of church that is really life-giving and I want to be a part of, and I'm excited to be a part of.
Yeah.